Okay, so basically what we're going to do today, I have some plum trees that I got from Your Yard Jax. It's a nursery here, actually food forest here in the local area in Jacksonville. So I'm going to plant these. Now, the key to planting trees is you can't unplant them. I mean, you can dig them up, but you can't really move them. So you kind of got to figure out where you want to put them because they're going to become trees. You can always cut them down, but then you got to start over. So the plan is to hopefully get them where we want. Now this is on the east side of the garden. It'll give it a little bit of shade, but that won't be until much later. These trees are looking to be about 20 by 20, 20 foot tall by around 20 foot wide is what they say is going to be. So that shouldn't shade my garden too much. It should give me an area where I have a little bit of shade, but not terrible. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and drink a cup of coffee and let's see how fast I can dig this hole. Alright, so the bottom line is when you dig your hole, first off you want it at least twice as wide as the pot. Alright, and the big reason for that is so you loosen the soil up around it so that the roots can go out and spread without having to fight their way through the hard packed dirt. Now we have sand here, so it's not as big a deal. You also want some good solid dirt. Now this was a wood pile and a brush pile for the better part of last year. So as a result, the dirt here, comparatively speaking, is actually pretty good. You can see a little bit of dark in it, a little bit of black, which is much better than the average sand that you normally see here in Jacksonville. Not a lot of nutrients in that stuff that's coming up from down at the bottom. What you want to do at the tree, there's what they call the crown, and that's essentially where the roots meet the actual tree itself. So what we want to do is we want to bury it basically to the point of where that crown is just below ground. All right, we don't want it to go too deep because that can cause it to rot out and not grow, but we also don't want a lot of exposed roots. So with that being said, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pull this out and we're going to take a good look at the roots. Now, for me, a lot of people do this different. They either cut them open or what have you. For me, if you just press down on the sides, it'll push the dirt and the roots away from the pot. Then you can usually lift it out as one piece. Now, set this down gently. If you see here, I've got some swirling roots. And essentially what's going on is these roots are starting to get to the bottom of the pot and they're really getting clumped up in there. So if you leave it like that, it'll still grow, but it'll take longer because the roots don't have the opportunity to spread out and move where they want to. Now, a lot of people will tell you, depending on the plant, be careful, don't jack up the roots, don't cut them. Other people will tell you, cut the roots in a pattern. I'm not really sure which one is the best, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen them up, try and get them to spread a bit when we put it in here. Make sure, like I said, my dirt is nice and loose. And I'm going to pack some of this sandy stuff up around the sides. Try and take a little bit of this little better dirt over here and put in there, so I get a little better soil mixture. Now, a little bit of vegetative matter, if anything, helps. So don't worry about putting stuff in, especially down low. The only thing you want to watch, like what was here before, was a crepe myrtle tree. Now, a crepe myrtle tree, if you get this in the ground, there's a possibility that much will turn back into another wannabe crepe myrtle tree. That's why I try to pull up some of the roots around here, because if I don't, then what will end up happening is that this will come back and I'll have an invasive crepe myrtle trying to grow its way back in. So I'm going to break this root ball up a little bit. Now, I always do this over the well that I'm putting it into, because that good dirt goes back in there and the mulch and what it's used to. Also, you'll notice that this is wet because I did water it like yesterday to make sure that it's nice and moist when it comes time to put it in the ground. All right, there we go. The other thing you want to look at, obviously, is you want your tree to actually go straight up and down and not sideways. So, then just kind of pack it up, get it set how you want it, and then start throwing some dirt in there. Spread some of that around. Now, a lot of people will tell you that you should put fertilizer in. It's kind of up to you. You know, I'm sure it probably helps, but the other side of that, I always feel like I don't want to spoil a tree, if that makes any sense, by having a lot of fertilizer, because then it's going to need that fertilizer basically to grow as it goes on in the season. Whereas my goal is to create natural fertilizer from mulch and so on. So with that, I'll take another sip of coffee and we'll get back to work. Still recording?
Yep, I left it on. I'm watching it.
Okay, so what I read online is that you want to start basically any tree with about 5 gallons of water. One of the things that's critical for a tree in particular is the first years of its growth, it needs a lot of water, particularly that first summer. In my other house, over by the beach, we actually planted a peach tree, and it died. And basically because it didn't get enough water. The grass all around it basically was nice and green and pretty because it got plenty of water, but the peach tree did not. And as a result, it never did make anything out of itself. It died off and never came back. Got to keep them wet. So for the first couple of months, I try and come out every other day on new trees in particular and water them. That's what basically the little mound around the outside is. You can call it a dike, you can call it a water well, whatever the case may be. But like when I first plant it, I will completely soak this thing until it's full. And then I'll continue to do that. But now I can get by with that a little more than other places because of the sandy soil here. All the excess water, for the most part, will drain away. Whereas if you got a lot of clay in your soil, I can imagine where that could actually cause you problems with root rot and so on. Now you notice it came with a stick to hold it straight. I will probably leave that up for probably the first year or so, depending on how strong the tree gets. It provides a little bit of support and keeps it pretty much straight. So that's kind of up to you. The only disadvantage is that your tree can actually come to depend upon the staking. And when it comes time for a high wind, you might have problems with the stake snap. So total elapsed time to plant the tree, what, about half an hour or so? Plus or minus a few. Now I don't have any wood chips made at the moment, otherwise I would go ahead and cover this up with some wood chips. And I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of a little iffy on that whole concept. I can understand where it would be good, but as a young man growing up in Kansas, I was always taught never to mulch a tree because it can cause the roots to set up in the soil directly underneath the topsoil instead of going deep looking for moisture. I guess it's a little trade-off either way. Permaculture is based upon the theory that we're going to create a forest. And in the forest, you don't have anything keeping mulch from being right there where the tree grows. So I think that if anything, we should probably err in that direction, and I'm going to go ahead and put some mulch down, and we'll see how it goes from there. All right, on to the next one. All right, so, excuse me. So, a couple of things just to end the video. One, you're going to get some websites that'll tell you that you need this additive and you need that additive. And, you know, there was even one website I won't mention that was talking about how I needed to get their watering compound so I could mix it in with the water to make sure that we got the right nutrients. And that doesn't happen in nature, all right? In nature, seed falls to the ground, seed grows up, becomes a tree, and it grows in whatever dirt is there available. Now, obviously, if it's not in good dirt, it won't grow as well. But if it is in good dirt, it'll grow better. So we're going to do some work here a little bit later on to try and improve the soil and make it good dirt. But the key is get it in the hole, get it about the right depth, get it standing up straight, and throw some water at it. You know, maybe we'll fertilize, maybe we won't. Like I said, my intention is to use other sources for fertilizer than going to the store and buying a bag of fertilizer. I'm going to try and use the mulch that I've got growing in my mulch pit. I'm going to use lawn clippings. I'm going to use various different sorts of vegetative matter, biomass is what they call it, to make the soil better around it. But in the meantime, it should do fine. Most dirt has enough nutrients in it to support the life of a tree. So don't get too carried away with, you know, what this guy says and what that guy says. Dig a hole, throw it in it, throw some water at it. Most everything will grow. All right. Now, some will grow better than others, and we'll talk more about that later. But in the meantime, that's how you go about planting a plum tree. The key is get the hole deep enough, get the hole wide enough. You want to loosen the dirt so that the roots don't have to fight to get to where they want to go, and then throw a lot of water at it. Water it consistently for the first few months of life, your tree will take off. And well, or I could be lying. I mean, obviously I'm not the expert, but we're going to find out. And I'll get back to you here in a few weeks and show you how everything's going.